Good evening, friends, and welcome to an unscheduled breaking news live stream with Crime Time with DutyRon Ed Wallace. Tonight, we have to report to you, as everyone's been hearing, breaking news. Bryan Kohberger, the University of Idaho murder suspect, has pled guilty in a plea deal to all 4 murders to save the death penalty is taken off the table. He also gave up his right to appeal. And this is just all coming through the wire as we were having dinner here at 6 o'clock Eastern time. This broke, and my good partner in crime here, Ed Wallace, my good friend, called me. He didn't even text me. He called me. Ed, your thoughts on this shocking breaking news from Bryan Kohberger, University of Idaho murderer suspect?
Well, I always knew this was a possibility, that this plea was always going to be on the table at some point in time. It probably has been out there for quite some time. It's just as we got closer to picking a jury and the defense finally came around and said, oh, we'll take that plea so that Bryan doesn't face the death penalty. And I can understand wholeheartedly why many of the victims' families are upset that Bryan will not be facing the death penalty for the murder of their loved ones, 4 people murdered senselessly by this monster. Okay. And, they stretched this out, going almost on 3 years? The defense team stretched this out.
Yeah, this murder happened on November 13th of 2022. And that's what I think about. I think about the families and the emotional roller coaster that they're going through right now as we speak. We saw from the Goncalves family Facebook page that they are disgusted. They are, we'll look at their words in a few minutes, but how many people in the chat expected this? By a show of hands, put a 1 in the chat if you expected a plea deal to come down. Put a 2 if you were completely taken off guard. We want to know what your thoughts are as we listen to the breaking coverage. So put a 1 if this is something you expected, 2 if it completely caught you off guard. Let's see what the chat's saying, Ed. Here's a little bit of the story. We're not going to play it all, but let's take a listen.
Good afternoon. We have some breaking news here on ABC News Live Reports. I'm Alex Brachet in Washington. Right now, we are following news out of Idaho. Bryan Kohberger, accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students in 2022, has accepted a plea deal. ABC News has confirmed that he has agreed to plead guilty to all counts. ABC News Live anchor Xana Whitworth is on the phone with us. She has been following this case from the beginning. And Xana, what details can you share with us about how this deal came together?
Yeah, Alex, this is simply a stunning turn of events in a case that has gripped this entire nation. Up until today, we were looking at an August 18th trial date with Bryan Kohberger's life on the line. What we know now from families who received a letter is that Bryan Kohberger has accepted a plea deal. In part of this plea deal, the defendant will plead guilty to all counts listed in the indictment. So that is 4 counts of murder as well as a burglary count as well. He will serve 4 life sentences consecutively with no possibility of parole. And the defendant will waive all rights to appeal this conviction as well. It also sounds like they will be seeking some restitution for families. This is things like money for funeral expenses and, victims' compensation. The next thing that's happening, Alex, is there will be a change of plea hearing, and that is this Wednesday, July 2nd. And so for some, this may be some finality and some closure. For others, you have to imagine, Alex, there are so many unanswered questions in this case, and I'm sure that there's fear that those questions will remain unanswered. But here we are after more than 2 years, the one and only suspect in the Idaho college murders case, the man who stood accused of murdering Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, and Ethan Chapin. His name is Bryan Kohberger, and he has accepted a plea deal.
Well, and listen, Kana, of all the trials, it feels like we've been keeping track of over the last several weeks. This was the one that we anticipated was at least going to have some sort of resolution later on in the year at the earliest. But for our viewers that are just kind of catching up, can you walk us through what the past several months have been like with this case?
It's been tumultuous. There has been filing after filing and pushback from the defense, initially trying to delay the trial. They had maintained their client's innocence this entire time. They wanted to have the death penalty taken off the table. They tried many times unsuccessfully for that to happen. In the meantime, this has been under a gag order. So people involved in this case have not been able to speak out about it, which is why so much of this case has been shrouded in secrecy. We thought that it was going to go to trial in Moscow, and then it got moved down to Boise, and then it got pushed back yet again. And so here we are now, about a month before this trial was supposed to start, and we have learned that instead of a trial, there will be a plea deal.
Ed, some of the most shocking moments when you look back at this thing is, again, what this reporter said was valid. His defense attorney, Ann Taylor, submitted motion after motion after motion, challenging all of the damning evidence against Bryan Kohberger. And here we are just a month before, or a little bit more than a month before the trial set to kick off. And she accepts a full plea deal. You heard 4 counts of murder in the first degree, 1 count of burglary, no parole, life without parole, and restitution. This is just so egregious in so many different ways. A waste of taxpayers' money, a waste of time, a waste of effort. Your thoughts, Ed, on this?
Well, Bryan is the one who accepted it. She recommended he accept it because she knows what the evidence is. She saw everything here, and she knows that their potential for losing this case and being given the death penalty was so high that she recommended he take this deal. Now, typically, though, when you take a deal like this, you're going to proffer what you did. You're going to get up and explain what you did. So there will be a chance for him to say, on this date and time, I entered the house and this is what happened, something to that effect.
Right.
Okay. And so we'll get some information, but not as if it was a full-blown trial. You're not going to get in that deep here. So he's going to have to take accountability for what he did, and he's going to have to tell the judge and answer this out to the judge. The judge has the final say on the plea deal, right? So, I mean, but I don't think the judge is going to deny the plea deal.
Yeah. How many people out there in the live chat and watching on the replay are outraged by this? We'd like to know your comments and your feelings. I see the chat is going wild right now. The interesting part about this is that so many of us, and not just us here in the true crime community, but so many people that are in that Moscow, Idaho community, and also the families, wanted to, for their loved ones, hear exactly what the evidence was and what they had. And I'm sure that, the Goncalves family, we know Ethan Chapin's mom was up in the air about attending the trial, Xana Kernodle, and the rest of the families, they wanted justice for their child, for their young adults. And you know what? They're never going to get it when you look at it this way, because yes, he's going to be going to prison for the rest of his life without the possibility of parole, but he's going to be breathing, eating, taking rec time, getting in, studies and so forth. It just is just, when you think about it, it just makes you sick. And let me know what you think in the chat as well. Ed, again, that's the thing. Everyone's stunned about this. People are speechless. I'm reading some of this, stunned. We can't believe it. He's such a coward. He's evil. Ed.
Well, how many times have we looked at the evidence here on our show, and I did those presentations where I had the link analysis of all the different pieces of evidence that were all pointing back towards him.
Right.
And other people were like, no, it wasn't him. He didn't do it. And they were getting very aggressive and hostile towards us, when we were saying everything seems to be pointing at him. Now, if he didn't do it, and being, I believe he, has certain aspects of narcissism. And if he didn't do it and he felt to be the smartest person in the room, I think he would still be fighting this. I don't think he would have listened to his attorney and would have told his attorney, no, let's fight this.
Right.
Let's go. They don't got nothing on me. Let's fight this.
Yeah. I do believe that they had a very strong case here. And at the end of the day, Bryan Kohberger, his attorney, probably advised him, look, I don't think that we have a chance of winning this case. But the sad and the maddening part is that Ann Taylor dragged this out until we're looking at, 5 weeks to trial, 6 weeks to trial. We're already hitting July 1st. And she dragged this thing out and put everybody through the ringer on this, including having Latah County put in the expense, because the cost goes to that county, of changing the venue. We had Judge, who was just, Mr. Softy ice cream man. He was just, whatever Ann Taylor was asking for, he was giving her. And they moved it up there to Judge Hippler. And it's just, in my eyes, I feel like it's a travesty of justice, but at the same time, when I look at it, and it's not fair for me to look at it with, these victims' families in mind, I say to myself, he's going to be locked up. He's going to be living in a very small cell. He's going to be, being told what to do. He's not going to have his freedoms, but he's going to be living and breathing the air. And that's just too much for me for what he did. And like you said, Ed, there's so much evidence. We have a whole case of humble pie sitting in the freezer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of people that's going to be nibbling on that pie. But that said, Ann Taylor, up until last week, she tried to delay this trial again. She made a motion to delay the trial again. She needed more time. Yeah. Okay. And, the judge wasn't having any of it. Okay. Enough. He said, enough. All right. And your third party defense, no good. Okay. Mm-hmm. You didn't establish anything with that. Okay. So, and she's a public defender, right? She's working for the, as a public defender, technically, right? Because she's one of just a handful of capital punishment defense attorneys, right? For the state of Idaho. When he takes this plea, he cannot argue any appeals. So he can't say ineffective counsel, that I was misled by my attorney. All right. So in a way, this is better than the death penalty, because he's admitting he did it. Death penalty could be 25 years of appeals and denials. Yeah, we all know how that works.
But he's not going to be and with this scenario, he's not going to be able, and that's part of the stipulation, that he will not be able to, these counts of murder and everything. He's not going to be able to try to, put in appeals and so forth. There's conditions, and we're going to hear about it. Thank you.
Right, but he murdered 4 people. Yeah. And to me, if this went to trial and he was found guilty, he forfeited his right to be breathing air at this point.
I agree.
Okay? All right. So
let's take a listen to this, because he talks about the family, the Goncalves family, and this is, again, the local news that we listened to last night for those 2 firefighters who were ambushed and murdered, and the 3rd firefighter who is hanging on to his life. Same channel, same news outlet. Let's take a listen.
Sources and sources we've reached to just a few minutes ago confirm a plea deal has been accepted by Bryan Kohberger and his defense team. We have reached out to the families. Obviously, this is a very sensitive time. a crime of this magnitude where 4 young lives were taken in Moscow, Idaho, a few years back. Let's show you a response that was posted on the Goncalves family page, and they are not happy about.
So here it is, Ed. It says it's true. We are beyond furious at the state of Idaho. They have failed us. Please give us some time. This was very unexpected. We appreciate all your love and support. And they put hashtag heartbroken, Kaylee Jade forever. This is Steve and his wife. They run this page. And again, heartbreaking to see this because you know that they were all in. And I spoke with Steve privately, and he was all in for attending every day of that trial. And you know, I don't know so much about, you know, Xana Kernodle and her side. I know the Chapins, they were talking about not attending, but then she had second thoughts about it. But when you look at this thing, it's shocking. It's shocking that a plea deal, because I was asked several times, and I know you said that you felt it could be a possibility. I was like, hands down, there's no way the state of Idaho with good faith can offer a plea deal to this monster who essentially butchered and almost severed one of these victims' heads off and hands and fingers. We heard all the gory details from the Latah County coroner early on in this thing. And you look at the viciousness of this crime, and for him to now get a deal that spares his life, it doesn't sound copacetic to me. It just doesn't jive to me. I'd
like to know when the prosecutor approached the defense team with this plea. How long has this been on the table? Has it been on the table for quite some time? Or is it something new that came up? And if it's something new that came up, did it come up because of the news leak?
Yeah. I don't know, but I know that I was watching footage today from Hunter and his girlfriend. They were on like the ABC or some Dateline or something like that. There was some interview with them, and they were talking about how when he responded to the 1122 King Road location, he was going into an interview, and that's what I saw today. And there was some kind of filing today or some type of argument earlier today up in court. So I don't know when this all was brewing, but it didn't just all of a sudden materialize today. They had to have been negotiating back and forth on this. And you know, people in the chat are saying, well, now we want to see the evidence. Now we want the gag order lifted. I don't know, Ed. I'm not quite sure that we'll see any of this evidence. Obviously, no trial. It's not going to be on public display.
Yeah. You know, people are saying, hey, you've seen worse in New York, and yet, you know, New York doesn't have a death penalty. Well, I'm just one person here. I can't control the politics of New York and how our elected officials took that death penalty off the table for us here in New York. We had it. I testified in death penalty cases. Okay. Right. Before the state legislature took that death penalty away. Okay. You know, there's nothing I can do about it. I just do my job to the best of my ability, and then hope for the conviction and that the appropriate time will be served.
Thank you, Laura, for the $2. She says he will suffer hell on earth and beyond. Well, let's listen to the rest of this.
About this at all, and I'm just going to read to you what they have here. It is true. We are beyond furious at the state of Idaho. They have failed us. Please give us some time. This was very unexpected. We appreciate all your love and support. Hashtag heartbroken. Hashtag Kaylee Jade forever. We have reached out to sources. They are being looped in with authorities right now, but multiple sources reporting that this case that was expected to begin in August in Boise will not go to trial after all, as Bryan Kohberger and his attorneys have reportedly accepted a plea deal for the quadruple homicide where 4 young lives were taken, but at a time when the families have to be shell-shocked. of this development. They all wanted to go to trial. They wanted to sit there. They wanted justice for their loved ones. As you look at some of the other hearings, previous hearings where Kohberger and his attorneys were in court. And we can't stress enough the support this entire community has sent to the families and, as we remember, the young victims. Here are their pictures. They are forever with us when we see these photos. Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, in that order from left to right here. But once again, breaking news, Bryan Kohberger accepting a plea deal. We have not had that confirmed by the judicial offices or the prosecutor or the defense attorneys at this time, but multiple sources and sources we have reached out to.
You know, it's interesting that the news is very cautious about what they say here, Ed, but I wanted to say too that, you know, when you get a hold of the Goncalves family and he reached out, he said to Ethan Chapin's mom, and you hear that they confirm it, this is how it goes. And Ed, you can, you can back me up on this. The prosecution is going to reach out to the family. And some people in the chat are saying, why didn't the family have a say in this? The prosecution does the best that they can with their knowledge of the case. And they do what they can to ensure that a just verdict is in and that they win the case, right? They knew that they had enough evidence to win this case if it went forward. But once Ann Taylor came to them, or however this broke down, they just said, you know what, life without the possibility of parole, and Bryan Kohberger never getting to see the light of day and then locked up for the rest of his life is just as good as going to trial and getting that guilty verdict and having him, go the death by firing squad route. But again, it leaves a bad taste, and we're not even family, and we're just like, what is it? Can you imagine what these people are going through? So the prosecution does what they can, but they are communicating first with the family before they're putting it out officially to the media. And I think that's the right thing to do. What your thoughts on that, Ed?
The right thing to do, to notify the family first? Absolutely, 100% before this hits the news and spreads around the world. Yeah, they did that in this case. This is something that I would have done in person. Okay. I would have went to the family in person as a prosecutor, if I was a prosecutor, and spoke to them. And you would have to understand that they're going to be some of the family members that are going to be very upset with your decision here to do that. Now, the family does get to make an impact statement. Okay. So they'll get to say their piece at the hearing for the plea, and speak to Bryan and the court directly as to how they were impacted by the death of their loved ones and at the hands of Bryan Kohberger. So, that's going to occur as well. But I feel for them. I really do feel for them. I feel their pain. You can, it's palpable that you can read it in the words, how painful this is to them.
Yeah, 100%. And it's heartbreaking for any parent that's out there to hear about this, anybody who's following this case. But again, the amplification is 1,000 times over. This is just shocking news that I did not expect. Definitely, when you called me and you told me about it, I was just talking to my wife. I can't wait for this trial to kick off, because I want to hear, all the evidence they have, because we had so many of these pro-burgers, right? The people who were supporting Bryan Kohberger. I'm curious to see what they start now saying in there. Oh, he was coerced into this, or he didn't really. No, you're going to hear him in court say, the judge is going to say, did anybody coerce you into this? Were you promised anything? There's going to be a whole bunch that we'll hear in the court. And the next court date, I had it written down, was, I believe, the 2nd of change of plea hearing, which was scheduled for July 2nd, I believe. So we'll see how that goes, and I'm hoping that there'll be live coverage of that so we can tune in to listen to it. Let's go to the chat, Ed, and see what everybody's talking about. Thank you, Monique, for your 28 months. This case is why the death penalty exists. What the hell happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Tiffany, thank you so much for being a member for 8 months. The family should have been notified, and they were. And they certainly were. Becky B, good to see you, member for 22 months. I'm beyond outraged, thinking of the families. Yeah, amen. We put this one up and we talked about it in this one too. Thank you, Laura. Matt says, am I the only one that chose the death if the alternative option was life without parole? Am I the only one who choose death if the...
I guess if you were in Bryan's shoes, you would have chose death over life in prison without parole. Okay, that's interesting.
Well, I mean, I think maybe the thought process there might be like being locked up for the rest of your life at, what is he, age 29, 20? I don't know how old he is now, but he's young. So to spend the rest of your life in prison, some people would say, I'd rather be put to death.
So he's going to get 3 hots and a cot, cable TV, gym, all the health benefits at our tax expense.
Right.
And probably can finish his Ph.D. in there.
God. Cheryl Klein, thank you for the 2. Bryan still wants to be in control. He's a coward. Yeah. Tiffany, thank you for the super chat. Xana's family is furious and they say that they will fight it. I'm not quite sure if they can do that. Angel Nikki, thank you for being a member for 34 months. Bryan Kohberger is a coward. I feel bad for the victims' families. Yeah, absolutely. Thunder Horse, thank you for being a member for 15 months. And thank you for always gifting memberships and all this stuff. Thunder Horse says, will we ever hear all the evidence now? No.
Well, no. I mean, there should be no reason now for
but who's going to
evidence not to be released?
Right, but who's going to spread it out there, and how will we hear about it?
Well, the prosecution can, and the judge will lift the order to seal the records and unseal them, and then all of that evidence can be brought out there for the public to see by the prosecutor.
Thank you, Angela, for being a member for over 28 months. I know it's longer. She says sending prayers out to the families. Thank you. Let's go to the chat. Yeah, Kitty, thank you for that message. Kitty McK13 says, I can't even imagine how the families feel. They're furious. This guy gets to live, breathe, and have his vegan meals. I can't. Yeah, it's insane. I want to check in with our friend Anjanette Levy. She's on Law and Crime right now live, but let's just hear. Even though sometimes some attorneys have some things to say that we disagree with, I want to just hear what he has to say here. She asked him a couple of questions.
Some time. This was very unexpected. We appreciate all of your love and support. #heartbroken. #Kaylee Jade forever. So they really are upset. How does a family deal with that, and how do prosecutors go ahead and go with a plea deal like this when at least one of the families is opposed to it?
Well, first of all, I look to law, right? Everything that prosecutors and defense attorneys do, and certainly judges, is circumscribed by state and federal law. The law does not say that victims and victims' families are a party to the prosecution. What they are is they are included in the conversations. They are sort of incorporated into discussions. They are kept apprised of all the proceedings, what is pending, what's going on, if something is calendared in court, if there is restitution that could be outstanding and owed, that type of stuff, so that they're not left in a lurch and left in the dark as to what's going on under that Marcy's Law, we call it. They have a Bill of Rights. However, they don't get to control the charges, and they don't get to control the outcomes, particularly in the state of Idaho. So what you do to comfort them is you include them in the conversations, and you explain to them why they are settling. And if we're honest, if we're all really honest, it is possible that a jury could have deadlocked on penalty. Remember, there was quite a bit of litigation and workup done on Bryan that he is living on the autism spectrum. And there could be one juror out there just waiting to be impaneled who could actually find that to be a significant enough mitigating factor to spare his life. And if that were the case, do you really want to retry the penalty phase? So what you have here is finality, and you explain that to the family, and hopefully with time, they might not be able to digest that and embrace that sort of unceremoniously and overnight, but hopefully with time, they will accept it. And something else that I've seen, Anjanette, and prosecutors will weigh in on this as well, you'd be amazed how many people over time change their views about capital punishment. That at some point they kind of soften up. I don't know if it's because.
All right. So he said it well. Basically, families are kept in the loop about what's going on and the way that the prosecution is going with cases. But when it comes to plea deals and all of this stuff back and forth, they really do not weigh in. The families do not have say in what they do. And that's unfortunate. So, again, I was taken back by this, but I think that, when you look at the big picture here, Bryan Kohberger is going to be where he should be, with exception, if you look at him going through a trial and then being found guilty, and then somebody said it earlier, Ed, all the appeals, and you're looking at 25, 30 years before they execute him, the sentence imposed, and then the execution, it sometimes is 20, 25, 30 years. We heard just somebody recently was executed, it was on death row for 40 years. So this closes this case out, and he will not be able to change his plea once it's entered and it's final. There's no like, ooh, I had a change of heart, right, Ed? Somebody in the chat put that, you could change your pleas anytime you want. No. Once it's agreed to, there's no, wait. There's none of that in this case. So, Ed, you want to talk maybe or expand a little bit on that?
Well, he thought he had committed the perfect crime. He, had been studying this stuff for his master's degree and then into his Ph.D. And he thought he was smarter than everybody else, and he failed, and he failed miserably. Law enforcement did a great job. They built a good case here against him. All of Ann Taylor's efforts did not come through fruition for him and assist him in potentially winning this case. I think she saw the writing on the wall, explained to him all the nuances of the case and the possibility of him getting the death penalty at this point. Now, this autism stuff, that's just recent, okay? That's something that was diagnosed during this, after he's been arrested. We have no information about him being on the spectrum prior to being arrested. None that I've seen. Okay. And I'm not sure that wasn't going to be challenged by the prosecution, whether he was truly on the spectrum, and whether that was just one person's opinion in this trial here, that the defense found an analyst or therapist rather to examine him and come up with this so that they could use it in this manner. So, it's a gamble. Look, either way, folks, we got to be, if we're going to be honest about this, whether you're the prosecution or the defense, when you put on a case like this, okay, it's a gamble. You never know how juries are going to act. Okay. You can get a really good jury, or you can get a really bad jury who deny evidence and just go with emotions and feelings, okay, and make their decisions that way. So it is a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, hopefully the prosecutors went to the family members and told them before they approached the lawyers with this, that this is what was going to happen. They were going to approach with a plea deal. Or I really would like to know when they did this. When did they approach with the deal? Has it been on the table for a long time? And now Ann Taylor's just accepting it because, again, all of her motions have been denied?
Yeah, and that's the unanswered question, and we may find out or we may not find out. Let's take a listen to this because I think that they talk about some of the other families talking to some of these reporters. Let's take a listen here.
After this happened, your perspective, I know you've talked to some family members, albeit briefly. What do you know? What are they telling you?
Yeah, Sean, I just got off the phone with Stacy Chapin, that is Ethan's mom, and I said, hey, we heard the news. I was wondering if you could confirm that, and she said she couldn't confirm nor deny. And I asked if they had sent a letter or maybe some type of form of communication to her in regards to this plea deal, and she just she broke down. And I said, well, take your time. We'll call back. We're sending your thoughts and prayers to you. I posted to Facebook, and I'm just getting so much reaction right now from the community, and it's reaction that you would expect. A lot of people upset with a plea deal. They wanted to see this go through. They wanted to see a trial. They wanted to see justice for the 4 kids, the 4 bright souls that had the whole future in front of them there in Moscow. So an emotional day here in North Idaho yet again, and this comes on the heels after 2 firefighters were shot and killed here in Coeur d'Alene. I'm going to start working with other family members that I have in my phone contact list and get back to you here, Sean.
Talking Stacy Chapin. John, thank you so much. We'll let you make some more phone calls, but as John outlined too, we're also going to respect their privacy at this time.
So there you have it. Stacy Chapin, again, emotional and rightfully so. You look at these families and they've gone through this murder happened in 2022, November 13th of 2022. So you're looking at a long period of time that this has been going on. Anybody in the chat see today that ABC show that I was talking about? I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to look it up, but I wanted to see. I think no, this is not it. Ed, just scan the chat for a second. I want to just look at it as we, because I want to play this.
Boxing MMA, 50 pounds. Thank you. Credit to the prosecution. They got a guilty plea, which he can't appeal ever. It's not what everyone wanted, but this evil, vile piece of you-know-what is behind bars forever. Thank God. I hear you. Hopefully with time, the family can accept what happened here.
Hunter Johnson and Emily Alon.
Oh, sorry, Ed, I found it.
Okay, yes, and so did my ears.
All right, so yeah, thank you, Gary, Boxing MMA. We appreciate that. Thank you for the 50 coming in from Ireland. Always great to have you as a friend, longtime supporter here. So let's take a listen to this because this just aired this morning, and it's Hunter and his girlfriend. He was on the 911 call, and he was the young man who responded, Ethan Chapin's best friend, and he was the one who sheltered the girls and asked them all to back out of the house. He describes it here, and I just was curious how many people saw it. Let's take a listen to this. This just aired this morning on Good Morning America.
Friends who prompted the 911 call. Their actions described by other families as heroic, but for them, it was a morning that changed everything. And they're speaking out for the first time about what they want people to remember about their friends. It's not just about how they died, but about how they lived.
You see the world in pure innocence, and that all gets ripped away from you in one phone call. That's just the day that changed it all.
This morning, for the first time, the best friends of Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle speaking out about that November day when they discovered Ethan, Xana, Kaylee Goncalves, and Madison Mogen brutally murdered in an off-campus home.
I don't think anyone expects anything like that ever in their life to happen.
Hunter Johnson and his girlfriend Emily Allant now telling their story in a new Prime Video docuseries, One Night in Idaho, The College Murders.
We were a big group of friends. Why would you target those four?
Emily says she and Xana were inseparable.
We were attached at the hip probably the first day that we met. Yeah, we just clicked immediately. We were same personalities, I feel like.
I love it when people talk about Ethan and Xana sort of being like male and female versions of each other.
Oh, it's very much true. They were the same person.
Hunter and Emily say the fall weekend started like any other with a big football game. The friends snapping this photo that Saturday.
It was a normal weekend for us, just hanging out with our friends.
The next morning, Emily says Dylan, one of the surviving roommates, called her concerned, asking her and Hunter to come over.
In the documentary, you tell the story of really not feeling alarmed when Dylan called you.
I joked around with her on the phone. You know, it's something you would never expect.
It's November, so I had shorts on, slides on. Like, I wasn't prepared to obviously stay there. I was just going over to check, see what's going on. I would say as soon as you get there, you know something's wrong.
Hunter was the first person to arrive to King Road to discover what happened. Their friend Josie Louderin, who was also there, describing the moments in the docuseries.
As soon as I stepped in the house, I was like, oh, something is so not right. Like, you could feel it almost. Hunter was ahead of me and Emily and immediately was pushed out. And Hunter was like, get out, somebody call 911.
You hear Hunter on the 911 call telling the girls there was an unconscious person protecting them from the graphic details.
Is she breathing?
No.
How did you remain so calm in that moment?
Truly, in my heart, I believe God was with me that day, and he gave me the strength to get through that day.
As authorities entered the home, the friends say they were told to sit outside, waiting for hours with little information.
We watched the ambulance come and we watched them immediately leave. So I think that was a hard part for sure.
That second you realize there's no one to be saved.
Right.
Their best friends inexplicably murdered. Not knowing who was responsible or why, they feared for their own safety.
We just left to get away, be safe.
Yeah.
Is our
You
mindset.
didn't feel safe.
No.
In the nearly 7 weeks it took police to arrest a suspect, Emily, Hunter, and surviving roommates Dylan and Bethany became the targets of online sleuths and social media attacks.
Lots of threats, people saying I should confess to murdering them. I felt like I was less than a person.
And this is what you and I always bring this out. It is so outrageous for people to do this. And the internet is a really, really toxic place sometimes. And there were not eyewitnesses, but he saw the horror inside that home. And then in the days that followed, he was getting called a murderer and being attacked. So it's really sad. It's a sad state of affairs that how online and social media, when we were growing up, Ed, this didn't exist. This didn't exist. If we were to go communicate with somebody, it would be face to face, or you'd write a note and you write a letter and mail it to somebody. But now people are keyboard warriors behind the keyboards and accusing people of and think about all the different people who were accused of committing this crime.
Keyboard tough guys, and the anonymity gives them a sense of bravado and bravery that they wouldn't have in person. And back when we were kids, as you said, if you were bullied, it was typically at school. But once you left school, you weren't bullied anymore. Now with the internet, and it's 24/7 bullying. Okay, you just can't get away from it. And even parents are involved. It's crazy.
So this is an interesting interview that we saw just today. I watched this just this morning. Again, folks, we'll continue to follow this closely, but this is something that was not predicted. Ed, I know you did on many different times. You mentioned that this is a possibility. I just didn't want to believe it. I just wanted to think that the trial would go forward and we would hear the evidence, it would play out in a court of law. But at the same time, I right now feel relieved for these families because you and I both know what they would have to see, what this would entail, autopsy photos, gruesome details. But again, we said we have cases and cases of humble pie for these Kohbergers and all these people who felt that Bryan Kohberger was innocent. We got the wrong guy. He's now going to say in the court of law, I am guilty of these crimes. He may or may not give any description. I doubt there would be any description. Maybe we may not even hear about a motive. But at the end of the day, he's going to have to say in his own words, I am guilty. How do you plead to these charges? Guilty. He's going to say that. So we'll get to hear it. And
remember, he never pled.
Right. Yeah. He just remained silent, and the judge entered the plea for him. But yeah, some people are like saying I'm flabbergasted. This is, this is shocking. So it is what it is, and we'll just see once this all unfolds and court is coming up, or July 2nd is a hearing, a plea change hearing, July 2nd, 2025. So that's coming up in a couple of days. Hopefully we'll have it televised and we'll cover that live. Ed, final thoughts before we wrap it up, because there's not really much more that we could say about this.
Well, yeah, I didn't see this coming. Honestly, I always knew that there could be a plea on the table, but I just didn't see him taking it because of what I felt about him was his narcissism, that he thought he was smarter than everybody else, and that he was assisting Ann Taylor with the case, and that he thought he could beat this, and so forth. But wow, I mean, like you said, we're pulling up just before the jury selection, and he takes the plea.
Yeah. Amazing. Just take a look at News Nation real quick. So Kohberger accepts plea deal. Prosecution proposed dropping the death penalty and must also agree to spend life in prison without the possibility of parole. Court hearing for a change of plea, which is Wednesday. This is 5 minutes. I'm not going to play it all, but I just want to hear what they have to say, if anything, if there's anything new or anything extra. Let's take a listen.
Banfield, host of Banfield right here on News Nation. Ashley, you've covered this story also from the very start. The families are in shock. Nobody seems to have seen this coming. Are you as shocked as everybody else watching this?
Yes, I am not only in shock, I think I share with Bryan a bit of sadness as well, because Elizabeth, you've done this job long enough to know that there's always two sides of a courtroom, and one side will be unhappy. It doesn't mean that justice doesn't prevail. This is a different kind of justice. It doesn't feel like justice for a lot of people. Sure as hell doesn't feel like justice for Steve Goncalves and his family, Kaylee's family. The other families, they weren't all in unison on the death penalty being mandatory in order to feel whole again. They'll never feel whole. Many of them didn't care at this point because they weren't getting their kids back. So it's really hard on the Goncalves family because they did not want this. And families matter. Prosecutors take into account what victims' families want and don't want. Chris Watts' family's victims' family members said, okay, take death off the table. Let him plead guilty. Let him go behind bars for the rest of his life with no opportunity for parole and no opportunity for an appeal. And we're fine with it. But these families didn't all feel the same way. This is why I'm processing a lot at this point, just as strictly covering the justice of it. I don't know that everybody's feeling justice.
Why, Ashley, would prosecutors make this offer, and why didn't they reach out to the families to tell them? It feels like, I mean, this is all breaking as we
I don't know. I reached out to Steve Goncalves a little while ago. He's clearly processing a lot. But I haven't heard whether it is true. In fact, he did.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. But we did play early in the live stream that he's pleading guilty to 4 counts of murder, 1 count of burglary, no parole, life without the possibility of parole, 4 counts of 4 charges of life without the possibility of parole, and no appeal. He is giving up his right to appeal. And that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to look for court filings after the 2nd, and I will have those court filings, and maybe we'll do another follow-up, Ed, after this hearing, and we'll see what they have to say. But, the rest of it is going to be unfolding as we speak. It'll be fluid and ongoing, and we'll see what happens, how quickly this plea will come into play, and how quickly the judge gets the sentencing going. And Ashley mentioned Chris Watts. It was just, it was Shanann's family that was, and Ed, as you said, the prosecutor from Colorado flew to North Carolina to see Shanann's mom, and he sat in their kitchen and told them what he was about to do, and she said she was okay with it, that she didn't want him to be put to death, and that she wanted him to plead. What she said there was accurate, because just 2 days ago, I spoke to Shanann's mom by text message, not about that, but it was about another matter. She texted me. So I'm in contact with Sandy Rusek, Mama Sandy, and that entire family is not the same. And they are still reeling in the murder of their daughter. And it's going back to 2018. So these families will never be the same.
Yeah, I had a quadruple homicide death penalty case in Queens, and there was a set of twins. One was killed, one managed to escape, and the father of the twins was a minister who, with the other family members, approached the prosecutor and told the prosecutor to take the death penalty off the table. And in that case, the Queens District Attorney's Office did. They took the death penalty off the table. And he was convicted of the 4 homicides that he had committed, and is serving life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Ed. But again, we send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the Mogen family, to the Goncalves family, to the Kernodle family, and the Ethan Chapin's mom, and all the surviving family members. They're the ones who need our strength, prayers, and support. Please be kind if you send messages to them. They're on social media. They need their space. They need their time to process this. And again, we're going to say to all the people who are supporting Bryan Kohberger and his innocence, we told you. And, I know that we'll continue to get these nasty, hateful messages, but we have that thick skin, Ed, right? We got it in the police academy. We were told that you have to have a thick skin to be on the internet. You have to have that thick skin. And again, we're never going to be cheerleaders for somebody like this, that there's an overwhelming amount of evidence that points to their guilt. And there's all of these coincidences as it pertains to Bryan Kohberger. And you can't just discount them and say, that didn't happen. These things happen, and then all of it mounted up together really, shows where we are today here. He's pleading guilty to these 4 murders, and we'll see what happens. On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we want to thank you for being here. Thank you for being respectful. Thank you for supporting us. We love and appreciate you guys. Ed, I know you always have something to say at the end of these things, so let's do it.
Again, folks, thank you for being here. Thanks for your support. We know you can get your true crime fix anywhere you like on the internet, and we're honored that you share your time with us. And thank you for your support. Always, folks, stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen, Ed. Good.